Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of LaRiviere Photo. I'm your host, Travis LaRiviere, and on this week's episode, I wanted to talk about how my trusted Canon AE-1 35mm film camera is now replaced by the new hotness, the Canon Rebel G 35mm film camera. Now, over the last couple of weeks, I've been able to shoot a lot more 35mm film and especially develop it myself. And I've always used this camera. I've used this camera actually for the last 2 years, and it's done really well. It's gotten me some really great images. It's some of the first ones that I ever started to print in the darkroom. But I went on a trip to Idaho for my brother's graduation about 2-3 months ago, and I was really excited to develop the rolls that I got from that specific trip. But unfortunately, when I started developing it, I noticed some really bad light leaks on the film itself, which completely devastated me. I lost a lot of great images because of that. And I realized, maybe if I developed it bad or I didn't load the film in a dark enough room. But when I really sat down to think about it, I realized that it was the camera's fault. And so, unfortunately, I have to retire this camera to now just be a pretty cool display piece. It kind of bums me out because this was a great conversation starter for any time someone would see me with this camera. But, it's going to have to sit on the shelf now and just be something pretty to look at. So in doing that, I decided to scour around the internet for something that would be a worthy replacement. And I decided on this, the Canon Rebel G. Now, everyone knows the Canon Rebel as a great line of entry-level DSLRs for beginning photographers. What's awesome about those cameras is they give you all the basic functionality that you would need for a higher-end DSLR, such as a 60D or a 5D Mark III, but really brings it back down to a level that pretty much everyone can learn how to use. It doesn't have as many features as the higher-end cameras, but they work really well. So with the Rebel G, this was a 35mm film camera that really surprised me when I first started looking at it. So let's go ahead and look at some of the great features of this camera. So the first thing right away about this camera that I immediately noticed was how light it was. I mean, this thing is an all plastic body, and it is not as durable and tough as other cameras would be. But the way that I live my life with a camera is I treat it like it's a baby. I don't want to be dropping it or mishandling it. And so this thing, although it is all made out of plastic, this thing is incredibly light. And sometimes when I wear it around my shoulder, I don't even realize that it's there just because it weighs practically nothing. On it, it has a dial wheel with all the proper functions that you need. So I have it on lock mode right now. It has fully automatic, and it has all of the basic settings that you would see on a DSLR camera, such as portrait, landscape, macro, sports, program, shutter priority, aperture priority, and full manual. Manual has the clickable wheel that I can be in control of the shutter speed, as well as the aperture. And finally, I can set whatever ISO I choose. This camera does have a built-in flash, which with the click of a button, it flips up and it gets ready to shoot a flash. The lens that I have on it right now is an EF 35 to 80mm. This isn't the fastest lens in the world, but this is pretty much a starter kit lens. What's great about this specific focal length, 35mm, is on a full frame camera, this is about as close you can get to your normal eyesight. So it's really great for walking around. It's great for just street photography. And if you're going to have any type of lens that gives you a good enough range of wide angle to kind of small telephoto, this is really good. One of the biggest selling points for me in terms of buying this camera was the fact that I can use any of my EF lenses on this camera that I would normally use on my digital cameras. Although I can't use the lens that I have on there now, which is the EFS 10 to 22mm, because that's made specifically for a crop sensor camera, I can use my 50mm f1.4. So being able to use any of those lenses that I have or upgrade to much better lenses and still use them on this camera as well as my digital cameras is a pretty awesome thing. The condition of this specific camera that I bought is extremely good. It pretty much feels like a brand new camera. From what it looks like, there's a bunch of new light seals on the inside of the film compartment. The shutter and the mirror both come up very well. There's no oil on the shutter at all, and when I open up the film compartment, everything is brand new, light seals are brand new, and all of the necessary components you need for loading film are right in here. So let's go over to the table and let's load some Ilford HP5 into this camera. So right here I have a roll of Ilford HP5, which is a 400 speed film. So we're going to load this 36 exposure roll into the back of this Canon Rebel G. So by pressing this button right here, this is going to open up the film compartment in the back. So I'm going to set it on top of the lens like this. And what I really like about this specific style of camera, especially these new electronic 35mm cameras is that you don't have to advance the lever a bunch of times in order to get to the first shot. And you don't even have to put it on a specific sprocket hole in order to move the film. So what we do simply here is we just insert the film upside down and we pull it over until we get to this little orange mark that's on our camera. So all we do is we load it to that point, we close it up, and then we turn it on to manual, and it starts counting all the way up to 36 shots. So what the camera is doing is that it's completely unrolling the film to this side of the camera. And by doing that, it actually starts to reverse the film back into the spool instead of doing it the old way with the Canon AE-1 by taking one shot, rolling it over to the next one, and then another shot. So it unwinds it completely, and then you start shooting your first frame back into the roll. So it's pretty cool. So I click this over here and it says 400 ISO, and that's the ISO speed that I want to be set at. So I want to thank you guys again for joining me here on another episode of LaRiviere Photo. Like always, subscribe here to this channel. Follow my Facebook page at facebook.com/Travis LaRiviere Photography. Follow my Instagram account at instagram.com/TLaRivierePhoto. And finally, and most importantly, visit my website at www.larivierephoto.com. See you guys next week.